There is a moment, somewhere between midnight and morning, when you finally stop asking why they hurt you and start asking why you keep letting it cost you your peace. You have replayed the conversation 100 times. You have written the comeback you never said. You have imagined the moment you finally prove them wrong, finally make them see, finally win. And yet here you are, still awake, still aching, still handing your night away to someone who was never worth your daylight. What if the war you have been preparing to fight was never yours to fight at all? What if the very thing you think will set you free is the thing quietly keeping you in chains? I did not come here to tell you to be stronger than them. I did not come here to teach you how to out-argue them, out-shout them, or outlast them. I came here to tell you something harder, something older, something that has outlived every grudge and every guarded heart in every generation before you. You do not defeat darkness by matching its noise. You defeat it by refusing to let it live inside your house any longer, and your peace, your mind, your one wild and precious life is the only house you were ever given. So let me ask you plainly before we go any further, how many hours have you spent trying to win a war with someone who was never fighting fair to begin with? How many nights has your joy been postponed because you were busy proving a point to a person who was never listening? Somewhere along the way we were taught that strength meant confrontation, that dignity meant defense, that silence meant surrender. But I have lived long enough and watched closely enough to know that some of the strongest people who ever walked this earth were the ones who learned to walk away with their heads unbowed and their hands unclenched. There is a kind of person who feeds on your reaction the way a fire feeds on air. Starve it, and it does not know what to do with itself. Toxic people are not looking for peace, because peace requires accountability, and accountability requires a mirror they refuse to look into. What they are looking for is a stage, an audience, a reason to feel powerful by making you feel small. And every single time you step onto that stage to fight them, you hand them exactly what they came for. This is the hard truth nobody tells you early enough in life. You cannot reason with someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. I remember a season in my own life, though I will not dwell there long, when I believed that if I simply explained myself clearly enough, defended myself firmly enough, someone who had already decided to see me as an enemy would suddenly see me as a person. It never happened. Not because I lacked the right words, but because the problem was never about my words at all. Some people do not want clarity. They want conflict, because conflict keeps them from ever having to face the parts of themselves that frighten them most. And once you understand this, something inside you loosens its grip, because you realize the fight was rigged before it ever began. Discipline, my friend, is choosing your peace on the days it is hardest to choose it. Motivation will tell you to defend your name today because you feel wronged today. Discipline will remind you tomorrow that your name was never actually damaged, only your patience was tested. Motivation is loud and fast and burns out by evening. Discipline is quiet, and it outlasts the noise entirely. The people who build extraordinary lives are rarely the ones who won every argument. They are the ones who learned which arguments were beneath the cost of their attention, and who spent that saved energy building something that could not be shaken by a single unkind word. There is a particular grief that comes with growing beyond people who cannot grow with you. And I want to honor that grief instead of rushing past it, because pretending it does not exist only makes it heavier. You may love someone and still need distance from them. You may remember who they used to be and still refuse to keep paying for who they have become. This is not betrayal. This is not coldness. This is the quiet, aching maturity of understanding that some relationships were seasons, not sentences, and a season that has ended is not a failure. It is simply a season that did what seasons do, which is change. Grief for a toxic relationship is a strange kind of mourning because you are not only losing the person, you are losing the version of yourself who kept hoping they would finally become who you needed them to be. You are grieving the apology that never came, the accountability that never arrived, the version of the story where they finally understood. Let yourself grieve that. Do not rush it and do not numb it. But do not mistake grief for an invitation to go back. Some doors are closed not out of anger, but out of love for the person you are still becoming. Now here is where I want to speak to the part of you that still wants to fight, because I understand that part, and I will not shame it. That part of you formed for a reason. Somewhere, at some point, silence was mistaken for weakness, and you promised yourself you would never let that happen again. But I want you to consider a different kind of strength, one that does not need an audience to prove itself. Boundaries are not built by shouting. They are built by consistency. They are built quietly, one unanswered provocation at a time, one untaken bait at a time, one calm exit at a time, until the people who once tested you finally understand there is nothing left to test. Self-respect is not the absence of anger. Self-respect is what you choose to do with your anger once it arrives. You are allowed to feel the fire. You are allowed to feel the injustice of being misunderstood, mistreated, or dismissed. But fire, left undirected, burns the very hands that hold it. Fire, given purpose, forges something new. Let your anger become fuel for the life you are building, instead of ammunition for a war that was never going to end in peace, no matter who claimed victory. I want you to notice something about the people who try to provoke you. They are rarely at peace themselves. Hurt people, left unhealed, become people who hurt others, not because they are irredeemably evil, but because pain that is never faced tends to leak out sideways onto everyone nearby. This does not excuse what they do to you. It does not mean you owe them your patience indefinitely. But it does mean that when you refuse to fight them, you are not being naive. You are recognizing that you cannot pour water on a fire that keeps relighting itself from the inside. There is enormous power in becoming a person who is simply too busy building their life to entertain someone else's chaos. Not busy in the frantic, avoidant sense, but busy in the deliberate, purposeful sense, where your days are so full of meaning, growth, faith, and forward motion that petty conflict no longer fits into the schedule of your life. When you are chasing a calling, when you are pursuing excellence, when you are becoming the person your future depends on you becoming, you simply do not have room left over for people who want to drag you into the mud to fight over nothing. Faith, in whatever form it takes for you, teaches something conflict never can, and that is patience with outcomes you cannot yet see. You do not need to correct every lie told about you. You do not need to win every round. You do not need the last word in every disagreement, because your worth was never up for a vote in the first place. There is a peace that comes from trusting that your character will speak for itself over time, long after the noise of any single conflict has faded into forgotten static. Let your life be the argument. Let your growth be the rebuttal. Let your peace be the proof. I think of the people throughout history who endured the cruelest treatment imaginable and still chose again and again not to become bitter, hardened reflections of the very cruelty done to them. They did not win by matching hatred with hatred. They won by refusing to let hatred write the next chapter of their story. If they could hold on to grace under conditions far harsher than the one email, the one comment, the one family member currently testing your patience, then surely you can find it within yourself to walk away from a fight that costs you far more than it could ever give you. Let me be honest with you about something else, because false motivation helps no one. Walking away does not always feel like winning in the moment. Sometimes it feels like losing, like giving up, like letting them get away with it. That feeling is real, and I will not pretend it disappears overnight. But feelings are not always accurate messengers of truth. The feeling of losing a fight you refuse to enter is not the same as actually losing. It is simply the discomfort of choosing long-term peace over short-term validation, and that discomfort fades far faster than the exhaustion of endless conflict ever would. Consider what it actually costs you to keep engaging. Every argument you enter with someone who is not operating in good faith drains something from you that you do not get back. Your focus, your rest, your creative energy, your ability to be fully present with the people who actually deserve your presence. Toxic conflict is a tax on your future, paid in the currency of your attention, and the interest on that tax compounds the longer you keep paying it. The moment you stop paying, you begin to understand just how much of your potential was being quietly siphoned off by battles that were never worth their price. So what do you do instead, if not fight? You redirect. You take the exact intensity you were prepared to spend on defending yourself, and you spend it instead on building something so undeniable that no accusation, no rumor, no unkind word can stand in its shadow. You let your discipline become louder than their noise. You let your consistency become your character reference. You let your results speak in rooms you were never even invited into. This is not passive. This is one of the most active, most powerful choices a person can make, because it requires more restraint than any argument ever could. You also learn the art of the calm exit, which is a skill, not an instinct, and one that must be practiced like any other. It sounds like saying, "I hear you, and I am not going to continue this conversation," and then actually not continuing it, regardless of what is said to pull you back in. It looks like leaving a room, ending a call, closing a message thread, not out of cowardice, but out of clarity. It feels uncomfortable the first several times you do it, because every part of you that was trained to defend itself will scream that leaving means losing. But each time you do it anyway, that voice grows quieter, and a new voice, steadier and wiser, begins to grow louder in its place. Boundaries, real boundaries, are rarely announced with anger. They are demonstrated with consequence. Anyone can say, "Do not treat me this way." Far fewer people can calmly follow through when that boundary is tested again and again without collapsing back into old patterns out of guilt or fear or fatigue. The people who successfully protect their peace are not the ones who never get tested. They are the ones who keep holding the line even when holding it is exhausting, even when holding it is lonely, even when holding it means disappointing someone who has never once considered disappointing you. I want to speak now to the loneliness that sometimes comes with this choice, because I would be doing you a disservice to pretend it does not exist. When you stop fighting toxic people, you may lose the drama that once made you feel important, needed, central to someone else's story. Silence can feel like emptiness before it starts to feel like peace. Do not mistake the quiet for a void. The quiet is not empty. It is simply unfamiliar, because for so long your nervous system has associated aliveness with conflict. Give the quiet time. It will teach you a different, steadier kind of aliveness, one rooted in calm instead of chaos. Rebuilding self-trust after a season of conflict is its own quiet labor, and it deserves to be spoken of honestly. You may find yourself doubting your own perception, wondering if you overreacted, wondering if you are the problem, especially if the person you distanced yourself from was skilled at making you question your own reality. Trust yourself again, slowly, the way you would trust a muscle that has been unused for too long. Start with small decisions. Honor your own instincts in small moments, and watch how that trust compounds until one day you realize you no longer need anyone else's permission to know what you already know. There is a version of you on the other side of this that you have not fully met yet. That version does not flinch at provocation, because that version has nothing left to prove to people who were never going to be satisfied anyway. That version has redirected years of wasted energy into purpose, into craft, into faith, into relationships that actually nourish instead of drain. That version looks back at the fights they almost had, the arguments they almost entered, the energy they almost gave away, and feels not regret but relief, because they can finally see clearly how much those battles would have cost. Excellence is quiet revenge, though I would rather you think of it as quiet freedom than revenge, because revenge still keeps you tethered to the person you are trying to prove wrong. Freedom asks nothing of them at all. Freedom does not require their apology, their understanding, or their awareness of your growth. Freedom simply requires you to keep walking forward, one disciplined day at a time, until the distance between who you were in that conflict and who you are becoming now is so vast that looking back barely stirs anything in you at all. Every single day you are given a choice that has nothing to do with the people who mistreated you and everything to do with who you decide to become in spite of them. You can spend today rehearsing an old wound, or you can spend today building a new life. You can spend today waiting for an apology that may never come, or you can spend today becoming someone so whole that the apology stops mattering. This is not about pretending you were not hurt. It is about refusing to let that hurt be the architect of the rest of your life. I want you to remember this the next time someone tries to pull you into a fight that was never worth the fire it would cost you. You do not owe anyone your peace as proof of your strength. Real strength was never loud. Real strength was never petty. Real strength has always been the quiet, disciplined choice to keep building, keep growing, keep believing, keep walking, even while the noise behind you insists that you turn around. Let it insist. You are not required to answer every call that was never meant to lead you anywhere good. I think often about how easily we confuse being right with being at peace, as though the two were the same destination reached by the same road. They are not. You can be entirely right about how someone wronged you and still lose everything precious by insisting the world acknowledge it before you allow yourself to move forward. Being right is a small, brittle victory when it comes at the cost of your joy, your focus, your years. Being at peace, however, is the kind of victory that keeps paying you back long after the person who wronged you has become nothing more than a distant memory you rarely think of at all. There will be people in your life who mistake your calm for confirmation that they were never wrong, and I want to prepare you for that, because it can sting in ways that catch you off guard. Let them believe what they need to believe. Their understanding of the situation was never the prize you were chasing. Your freedom was always the prize. And freedom does not require a witness, a verdict, or a scoreboard. It only requires you to stop looking backward long enough to notice how far forward you have already come. So here is what I ask of you now, not as a command, but as an invitation, the same invitation extended to every soul who has ever chosen growth over grudge, purpose over pettiness, peace over proving a point. The next time conflict knocks, do not answer with your fists or your fury. Answer with your discipline. Answer with your silence. Answer with the sound of your own life, quietly becoming everything they never believed it could be. That is not weakness. That is not avoidance. That, my friend, is the most powerful thing you will ever do, and it is available to you starting today, starting with this very breath, starting with the decision to finally choose yourself. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and for allowing these words to sit with you a little longer than most things do. If something in this reached the part of you that needed to hear it, consider staying close to this space, because there is more truth like this waiting for the moments you need it most. Subscribe if you would like to keep walking this path together and carry this with you into whatever waits for you beyond this video. You were never meant to win every fight. You were only ever meant to protect your peace long enough to become who you were always capable of becoming. Go and become that now.